News First, Newsline with Faraz, Shauketaly.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live Zoom. And once again, we are at the mercy of technology, and how lovely is that? Technology has made so much of advances. Sadly, unlike our country, which 74 years after independence is struggling to cope with queues. I remember the queues when I was far younger, and we queued up for most everything. And it's sad to see this country several years thereafter and living in the age of the smartphone, many, many years after man landed on the moon and so on and so forth, that we in Sri Lanka have had to go several decades backwards and even queue up for our fuel. Driving to work today, it was astounding. One of our chauffeurs had to spend over 5 hours, and the promised fuel didn't turn up. We thought we'd find out from somebody who knows a thing or two about fuel and all that sort of thing. And like we do on Newsline Live, we tend to bring you a professional perspective, and a very good one at that. And here's hopefully an expert opinion on all that's going around. We're dealing really with the shortage of fuel, the different types of fuel. So joining us by Zoom, having kindly so agreed to do, is the former acting chairman of the CPC and also a former technical head of the CPC, is none other than, of course, Mr. Cyril Suduwella. Very good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Newsline Live.
Good evening. I think I cannot hear you properly. Anyway, I can hear, but not properly. The sound, right. If you can increase the sound a little bit, much better.
Okay, let's try that.
Yeah. Okay,
my long-suffering priest,
okay.
Harshan is here.
Yes.
And he'll take us through this thing. Mr. Suduwella, tell me, is it possible to say in a nutshell why we are having the fuel shortage? What's the problem?
In short, the fuel supply to any country, not only Sri Lanka, should have a storage facility, and then either refinery or any supply line. In Sri Lanka, of course, we have two supply line. One is the refinery, other one is the import and supply, and we have the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and Indian Oil Corporation importing the products to Sri Lanka, and of course after the liberalization, we have the common use of the storage facility at Kolonnava CPSTL and Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and IOC distribution network. Whatever you have, the distribution network or transportation or import, everything, the storage is very important. And Sri Lanka, of course, we have about 28 days the storage facility, and time to time we increase when the consumption increase, and we increase the storage facility. Initially we had Corona only, then we built a Muturajavela and Sapagaskar distribution terminal, and we rehabilitate China Bay. And we have a large number of outstation storage depots. But unfortunately, most of these storage facilities are now today dry. And when it is dry, and even you get the number of ships online, so you won't be able to supply uninterrupted fuel to consumer. That is the main issue.
Because we don't have the oil or the fuel in the storage tanks.
That's the main reason, because the storage tanks are almost empty or because dry.
And Mr. Suduwella, how many liters or tons, let's say tons, do we need for 28 days supply sitting in our storage facilities?
No, usually per day it varies from time to time, but for petrol we can say about 3,500 to 4,000 metric tons per day is required for petrol, and diesel about for 5,000 to 6,500. But some people are telling these days the consumption has gone up, That may be due to the power generation also, with the power generation and various activities, and that is the daily requirement. But we accept the kerosene. Kerosene, of course, we import as a dual-purpose kerosene. DPK is the jet fuel and the kerosene, same product. But when the refinery is in full throughput operation, we can get the part of these products from the refinery. Not only this one refinery, we get certain amount of LPG, and then the petrol, and then the kerosene and jet fuel, and then the diesel, furnace oil, and the bitumen also. Bitumen also time to time varying depending on the crude oil. And so this, when the refinery is not in operation, so then we'll have to import 100%, should depend on the imports. So under this situation, the storage is more important than when the refinery is operational.
So typically, how much of storage would you ideally have in the facilities?
We have at the moment, we calculated about 28 days. The stock can be stored in Sri Lanka, in Kolonna, Muthurajara, Sapukaskanda, and other depots. The total, it can vary plus or minus about 5%. But 28 days we can store if the sufficient products are imported or refined. So
you can store 4,000 metric tons of petrol per day times 28, and 6,500 metric tons of diesel per day multiplied by 28.
Something like that, yes.
So
and
we have the capacity to store it.
Yes, of course, we have the capacity. That is why the country spent huge the quantum of money for building these storage tanks. And even after the LTT attack, and we built a Muthurajara tank farm and Sapukaskanda. And in addition to the storage, we have the refinery, Sapukaskanda refinery storage tank, and the crude oil storage. The crude oil storage, we have separate tanks in Urugudawatta and Sapukaskanda refinery. So if the refinery is under operation, in addition to 28 days, we have the refinery also the storage facilities. But unfortunately, these days, refinery is totally shut down, and no products in the tanks, and the other tanks also empty, but we are totally dependent on what we import. When we import, even you get the ship, and even you paid on the same day arrive, it usually you will have to first anchor into either SPM or the Dolphin Pier, and there you get the sample, and then the third-party inspection should go and test it. When the test results comes on next day, then the product, then they say okay, then only you pump. The pumping takes, depending on the product quantity, pumping also take a reasonable time. After pumping in the tank, it should take a reasonable time to settle down, and then you the load into the bowser by gantry, and then the bowser has to drive to the fuel station. It takes at least 3 days. So that is why I'm saying, if you have the tankers, one tanker coming, and you say, okay, you have lined up so many super tankers line up with the diesel or petrol, the fuel stations, you cannot get rid of these the queues, because when the operation takes at least 3 days from the ship to the filling station.
So basically, we need oil every day, really.
Exactly, every day, every minute, because for the power generation unit, every second you need fuel, and even in the country, every second some few number of or the large number of vehicles are running here and there. So every time it burns, and the airport you need fuel, and the kerosene you need for industrialists, and the illuminating gas for domestic use. So the fuel is a basic requirement. That is why in the today's world, energy security is prime important than anything else.
And what is this business about a dollar crisis then? Do we not have dollars to buy the fuel?
Dollar crisis is the political and how it managed or mismanagement or whatever reason, whether the Sri Lanka was one of the richest country when we were the small children, when we were going to school. We were happy to tell him that the Sri Lanka, we were proud to tell about Sri Lanka is the reasonably rich country in this region. But today, of course, we are running short of the foreign exchange and the dollars. But the fuel shortages, I don't blame for this one. I don't blame the money issue only, because there are certain other methods for storage fuel in any country. So one such method, we have already made the proposal through various parties to the government and the administration of this area, but no one has taken a serious effort on that one. And during this war period, Russia has offered the low price fuel to Sri Lanka on reasonable terms, and we would have get those supplies and store in our storage tanks. Maybe if we don't have money, we would have stored in as a bonded facility and get the fuel time to time the way we require, and various options are there. But
so Mr. Suduwella, why haven't they gone for this when you have a lack of money?
That I think the petroleum field is I think for a long period is handled by the top management is usually not the petroleum experts. I think I have seen the COP recommendations, or the Auditor General many times recommended to at least get certain number of professionals into the CPC Board of Management. But I have never seen, and right, I think they are expert in other field, but petroleum operations or refining or the oil or the energy experts, I don't think that may be the one reason. Other one, maybe the easiest way is to get the shipment and then transferred, just simply avoiding whatever the consequences. And you know that every tank come to the off harbor, the government is paying huge amount of demurrages. That demurrages we cannot simply avoid if we can now. For example, now China Bay, we have about almost 100 tanks, but some of them are not operational. But whatever operational, when we give the tanks to the lease to India, we would have given condition that the tankers should be always keep full when the prices are under different conditions. We would have given that on conditional leasing. Then the Indian oil or whatever, since we import fuel oil, whether we import from India or Russia or Middle East or Singapore,
it can be stored.
Is immaterial. If the fuel is available in tanks, we would have get it without demurrages. So this,
all right.
Those
point taken. Thank you very much. On that note, let's go for a short break. Take a look at this evening's news, primetime news headlines. Nearly got that mixed up. And we'll see you on the other side of the break, shall we? We're joined by Mr. Cyril Suduwella.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
What happened at Gotago Gama today? Sri Lankans protest in the US. 15 individuals involved in the Mirihan incident summoned to the CID. Why wasn't fuel distributed? Former ministers Udaya and Vimal in discussion with Basil and the President.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And very good evening to you and welcome back to Newsline Live, Zoom. Indeed, Zoom. And today we are in conversation with a petroleum expert, Mr. Cyril Suduwella, who was at one stage the acting chairman of CPC and also the technical head at CPC. Now then, that's interesting what you said, Mr. Cyril, that we've got the storage capacity. So when we gave the tanks to the Indians, we ought to have also insisted that they always maintain it at a certain stock level. Would that have been helpful to us?
Yes, definitely, because the at least number of tanks they have, if they can keep them full, then we can buy them from the whatever the price formula, Singapore flat price. And so good that you asked question. Now for every purchase we are paying now Singapore flat plus premium. But usually in my days in CPC, we were paying at least maximum $1.2, $1, $1.2 premium. But before the Ukraine war starts, we were paying about $5. Now, I think more than $5 we are paying because of financial crisis. And in addition to the premium, we are paying demurrage. So and transfer losses and evaporation losses. And so we would have avoided many losses and keep the prices low if we store oil in our storage facilities. And for example, if since the Indian Oil Corporation, the IOC have a lot of oil in India, so the government would have requested India or the IOC when these tanks were leased to them, that the one condition would have been keep the tanks always at least the certain amount of, say, 80% or 90% filled with the products. Otherwise, no point of keeping tanks with a lease or having our own empty.
Now, Mr. Suduwella, can you tell me the sort of wider picture? Why have we run out of money? Why does CPC lose so much of money? I mean, you and I, we pay at the pump. So why is there no money?
That is a good question. One is now when we can make a 10% profit if we run the refinery profitably. The refinery, or even though we have the 50,000 barrels per day, if we operate that 50,000 barrels per day, we can at least get about 1/3 of the country requirement by making at least 10% the crack margin profit.
So it's closed. Is it closed down because
totally closed because of lack of crude oil.
So back to the dollars.
That is dollars. And when we import crude oil, we should have the forward agreements. Now what happened is the most of the purchases are on spot buying. Spot buying, of course, you will have to pay more, and you have to pay more premium. And when it comes to the harbor, and then you pump to the Dolphin Pier or the SPM, and you pay them there are provision for the evaporation losses and other losses and various losses. So you can get rid of all these losses and the premium payments, and if it is managed well. Another thing is now in CPSTL we store all our products and the Indian Oil Corporation products in same tanks, but that also questionable. But in the stock management, the SAP system was introduced by IOC and accepted by CPC. That also has so many the controversial issues. But by managing at least even though we have 28 days, if we can at least can have 7 days or even 14 days requirement of fuel stock in tanks, we can easily avoid queuing in the filling station. And to make it profitable, we should have forward agreements and buying oil when the prices are high, or even we should have the oil intelligence. Simply buying oil, and in Sri Lanka, CPC is famous for having various the contracts, and sometimes the third-party inspectors, sometimes they were blacklisted, and again the blacklist that again removed and then again in service, and supplies also, like we told, sometimes blacklisted. So I don't know whether they are.
So Mr. Suduwella, sorry to interrupt you, but so what you're really saying is there's a fair amount of corruption going on.
Exactly. I know that not simple. If you really manage the CPC, I think I can say without as a thumb of fluid I can say now for the refinery, if you have the refinery operation, you can save 10%. In addition to that, the other refinery operation and CP steel operation, you can easily get rid of 15% corruption easily. So I mean that the corruption is more than 15%.
That's an awful lot of money.
Huge amount.
And
So
Mr. Suduwella, if we were to have 7 days supply of petrol and 7 days supply of diesel and 7 days of whatever, let's say kerosene, for example, have you done a rough calculation and see how much of money we need at current Platts prices?
So so the country's annual requirement is roughly about 5 billion metric tons of 5 million metric tons of the refined products, and the refinery of course have a capacity of 2.1 million metric ton processing capacity, and if you buy crude oil and the balance the refined products, I think that it need about at least 25 billion. I'm not 100%.
Okay,
today's price
we'll leave that. Let me ask you, sir, a question from a member of the public. Why is why has the CPC given out a number which is 0115-234-234 or 0115-455-130, which is the Ministry of Power and Energy, to check on the quality of the fuel? Why are people talking about the quality of the fuel? Is there a real prima facie case that the fuel has been tampered with?
No, there are cases time to time you get the various products. Now, you know that if you get the petrol, sometimes you get the petrol, we call it straight run petrol, sometimes the cracked products. Now, if you get for example, now the India's Reliance refinery, if you get the Indian product, the Reliance refinery is famous for cracking black oil into gas, petrol and diesel. If you get a cracked material into petrol, you get the different, the smell and different, the composition. But that composition doesn't mean that out of specification, even within the specification, you can have a different other properties that the consumer will notice as the adulterated or the low quality fuel. But without testing, no one can tell whether it is on grade or off grade. But we have systems, but Sapukaskan, the refinery, and Kolonna, the laboratory, and Industrial Technology ITI laboratory has facilities, and the government spent huge money for importing equipment and training people. And we have facilities and we have equipment. So we can test and see, but I know that when the consumers are complaining, I have not seen any productive or the reliable way of taking samples and analyzing and making the consumers aware. Because I know that the petroleum sector is a very utility, very vital section, and the Public Utility Commission is even though not given the proper the powers to regulate the petroleum sector, also can contribute or can test these samples time to time.
Very quickly, Mr. Suduwella, we've got about a minute. Can you tell me, in this, everyone's talking about a new change and a systemic change, new government, new parliament, new whatever. In that whole thing, very quickly, can you tell me what kind of change would you like to see at the CPC?
Yeah, I think that the petroleum, water, electricity like section should be headed by the professionals or the known people in subject area. Because nowadays, even if you take the minister or the deputy minister or the chairman or the MD, any of this institution, most of them are politicians. They have the experience in doing politics or supporting politicians. So that when they come to office, of course, they may be a good administrator, so the financial experts or other. but not in the professionals in this particular field. So the Sri Lanka is, the people go abroad and help other institutions to make them profitable. So why not Sri Lanka? I believe that the young generation who are working in overseas and many institutions, the upstream and downstream institutions, they can come and serve the organization. Petroleum is the industry where usually very difficult to make losses. It's easy to make profit, very difficult to make losses. But Sri Lanka making losses means, I feel, is large, is huge, the corruption and bad management.
Mr. Cyril Suduwella, thank you very much for being on Newsline Live Zoom, and we appreciate your time on our network. Thank you very much for telling us all about that.
Thank you.
And as we come to the end of this evening's Newsline Live on Zoom, let me tell you that once again, day in and day out, Team News First, the People's Channel, across all our channels, Sirsa, Shakti, TV1, all our radio stations too, we put the people's interest first and foremost, because after all, we are here for you, the public. On that note, take care. It's now time for the Primetime News. And as always, I leave you by saying, God bless you all.